Something I picked up from the Dzogchen, the Tibetan master and teacher, Namkhai Norbu. It seems to be part of the Dzogchen teachings, which is, I kind of rendered into the terminology, the three, I think he calls it the three something, three views perhaps. So we'll just call it the three views, the three perspectives on spiritual growth. And those are um, what he called the path of renunciation. I've kind of translated that as the traditional approach. And then there is the tantric or transformational approach. So what by tantra I mean here, the transformational style. And then the non-dual or transcendent or liberated perspective. So it's sort of like there's three main tools or approaches we can use to not only transform our state of consciousness, but especially to transform our karma, our personalities. So the traditional understanding is if I notice something that's upsetting my stomach that I've been eating, I could just say, okay, I'm going to stop that. So we just eliminate that. So one way to work with old karma is if you experience that karma rising in your experience as a behavior, but especially as internal states, like a state of mind, maybe there's sorrow, maybe there's grief from something that happened in this life or another life, and it's not healed yet. So it keeps arising. One way to be with that is to just simply experience it with a deep acceptance, to just a steady awareness. Don't run away from it. Don't wish it wasn't there. Don't judge it. Don't try to suppress it. You know, and also don't, get attached to it. Some people actually it's a sort of a weird human thing that we sometimes do, is kind of become involved in our own suffering and become a little attached to it. It's our story. It's our identity. This has happened to me. This is how we feel about it. So we're going to take a more balanced perspective and neither kind of cling to it or become too involved in it or judge it or condemn it or push it away. We just remain balanced, aware, and let it be there, because it's going to just have its own time. It's going to have its own cycle of healing and transformation, and just learn to fully allow it in your life and accept it. So let's say it's that grief. So it might be that for a while in meditation or in day-to-day life, you find that it's arising. So you just adopt this balanced attitude. And gradually, it'll sort of allow that energy to dissipate its energy. It sort of like releases by just arising in your experience. It has a sort of vitality to it. And that vitality will calm down. And it will gradually just quiet to the point where it just ends and it's just not an issue anymore. And that's because if we either push it away, reject it, condemn it, we're actually feeding it, and it's not going to heal as fast. And it creates other problems as well, obviously. Or if we're attached to it, we're actually feeding it, sort of like we're saying, yes, I'm involved in this more. But if we're balanced, accepting, and neutral, we don't re-energize it, and it's allowed to just have its space to be in that. It sort of basks in our awareness and our presence, and it will just sort of neutralize and gradually kind of, it's almost like it's coming up in our from our subconscious. Often it's coming into our awareness, and if we're with it in that way and let it be, it will gradually sort of lose its energy, and eventually it'll sort of settle down into the sort of basement of our subconscious and be quiescent, be neutral, and it won't be sort of activated anymore. So that's a little bit more on the traditional style. Part of the traditional style is you kind of neutralize painful karma by just sort of accepting it, but not re-energizing it. And then you also build up positive, just try to improve, like upgrade. The tantric point of view is based on that. Like, you still have to understand the difference, the things that you want to let go of, but you think of it more as that there is something of value in that emotion or behavior or desire or experience or memory, and that if you are with it in a kind of appreciative or at least like a loving, compassionate way, you can be enriched by it. Not only will it transform it to be with it in that way, you can be enriched by it as well. In fact, it could be that thing that you're with. Let's say you have a judgmental mind that's always, criticizing. We all have that part. And from this point of view, we don't want to neutralize that completely and just have it go away and become quiescent in the background. We need that discrimination. That's what's in that part of our nature is a wise, evaluative, discriminating, insightful part. It just needs to come out. It needs to be transformed into that. It's like it goes through, it's like a butterfly coming out of the cocoon. So if we relate to it in a way of sort of evoking that, appreciating its potential, then it will transform gradually into that. And so instead of going quiescent in our subconscious, it just becomes part of our nature. So this is a way of seeing that the phenomena that's arising in our experience can actually enrich us, but only if we relate to it in a transformative, accepting, healing, integrative way, not just going along with it on the one hand or rejecting it on the other hand. So that's a transformative point of view. And that's a harder one to hold. It's an important one to grow into. And if we know that that's the deeper dimensions of the path, that we are going to grow into more and more capacity to engage in a transformational approach, it also informs us about a sort of a healthier way to do the traditional approach too. And finally, the non-dual or liberated approach. In that point of view, we witness phenomena that's arising. We experience energies, memories, feelings, motivations, even behavior that's arising, intentions, plans, everything that's arising at that level. And when we're in a state of non-dual contemplation, we see the intrinsic liberated Buddha nature of every moment of phenomena. We see that judgment is made of Buddha nature. It might not be a state of consciousness that recognizes its own Buddha nature, but I see it. I see that it's the Tao. I see that it's Brahman. And so by the power of your own intuitive realization of its true nature, it's liberated in that moment. It becomes luminous. It becomes transformed. But the interesting thing about this state is that you're not actually even thinking about transforming it. You're so steeped in the awareness of its transcendent nature that the power of that recognition is what liberates it. So you don't have to think about, I need to control this, I need to calm it down, I need to purify it, I need to heal it, I need to transform it. There's nothing wrong with those ways of thinking when they're done in a loving way. But at the very advanced stage of practice, we can actually just rest in the state of recognizing the true nature of all phenomena that's arising. Everything is expression of God or Buddha nature. And in that realization, that karma is transformed, liberated, even without us thinking of that. That's what will happen. It just happens spontaneously. So that's the third one. That's a very advanced technique. It's, we have to be patient about growing into that ability, but it does come eventually. And I think that, ultimately, though, knowing about that full spectrum, and in fact, in a sense, the simple practices that we do at the earliest stage naturally will have a tendency to grow into the others. You don't have to necessarily switch practices. It's just start at the foundation, just be where you're at in your practice and being and working with your karma. And as you mature, as your own intuition deepens, you'll just naturally move through these deepening levels organically. But there's ways to kind of enhance it. There's knowing that those deeper levels are coming down the road. You can kind of tweak your practice in that direction and bring out, say, the transformational dimension more, for instance.